So yesterday we made a video.
I know.
And that
Was
video,
it yesterday or the day before?
No.
Yesterday was yesterday was Monday, so it was Sunday.
So the day before we made a video.
Sunday, yes.
And you gave a very good advice. You talked so many things about especially new immigrant, and especially those with the families, especially to have attitude of succeeding here, and so many other things. So speaking of children, especially people with the family, those kind of things, there are issues of schooling. How is the school? Do they pay tuition and fees? Do they wear a uniform? Do they pay for the school bus? Do they pay for the school food? How does that work for a brand new person comes here? How do I enroll my child in school? I just arrived here. Can I wait until next term, or can you go right away? Those are some of the questions I get from people who come with their families here.
All right. So you can enroll your child within a week or two of you arriving. Even if they don't speak a lot of English, the schools in the public schools here in the United States that are run by the government, they will still take your children, and they will help your child to learn English. So public schools, you do not pay for public school. You might pay fees for certain things. For example, if they issue your child a tablet or computer, you pay fees. It's sort of like an insurance in case something happens. You might have to pay fees if your child plays an instrument. Things like
music,
or if you're in sports and you have to have a special uniform. Some, not all, public schools wear uniforms, but most do not. And so you need to have clothes, and there's all public schools have a dress code. So you need, and if you are having a hard time understanding what's being written down, don't be embarrassed. Just ask for help. Say, my English is not so good, or I really don't understand the terminology. What's written here, please help me. And so you can read about the dress code. You can read about how to drop off and pick up your child from school. Buses you do not pay for, but some places buses will only come to a certain spot where they pick up your child if you live farther away from the school. So we live less than a mile from one of the schools here. So we couldn't use the bus for one of our children. Now our other child goes to a school that's about 5 miles away. So the bus comes and picks them up and brings them home, and you don't pay for that because it's a public school. You can't. I asked if we could pay for the bus to pick up our child even though we live less than a mile, and they said they don't do that. Different places have different rules. You just have to ask. School lunch, you can fill out a form because you are legal here, so you don't have to worry about filling out forms. You can fill out a form, and it's for what's called free or reduced lunch, and it will depend on your income that you receive each week, a month, whatever. And if you do not have an income that's high, then your child will receive free or reduced lunch. That's breakfast and lunch. And it may not be the best food, but your child will be fed.
I want to add something on that one. Once you arrive here, obviously you don't have that income. That's
so you just fill out the forms.
Don't feel, like you feel embarrassed that if I fill that form. First of all, no one knows over there that and even if they know, what's the big deal?
It doesn't matter.
That is something else, because sometimes, because I'm giving you an example, we grew up with poor people in Africa, so poverty, nobody wants to look like poverty or feel that I'm ashamed.
There are so many Americans that are poor. There are so many Americans that are poor.
And that's my beauty, to see, like I'm saying it in a nice way, not like in what it comes out. It was a feel relief to see white people are poor, because I didn't put in my head growing up that you can find out there are some, is it true, Americans and white people are poor? But that's why I want to make sure that when you come here, there is some, like, you have to fill that form. It will help to save maybe $50. Yes, And if you really, I'm not saying like you make $1 million and you are going to get for free food. No.
No.
If you don't have that income, fill that form.
Please fill it out. I mean, and then it could save you fees at school too. They could save you the fees for the tablet or or the musical instrument or whatever. There's, and don't be afraid to ask. The schools are there to help you. You may run into difficulties, and that's just the way it is. Some people have bad days or bad years. But you can ask other people. Try to meet parents that are near you or parents at the school where your child goes, and then you'll get more accustomed or acclimated to how things are done. And I was going to mention, what was it about the schools? Most of our schools go, they start in the fall between usually about August or September, and we go all the way to May or June. So some of them are year round, but there are breaks. We get days off, but we don't get the days off that people get in Africa or Europe. So be aware that if you're Muslim, we don't get days off for Islamic holidays. And I'm sorry about that. It's just how it is. And so we get...
No Easter Monday.
No Easter Monday. There usually is a few days before Christmas that you're off, and then maybe a week after Christmas, because here New Year's Day is big. So, but you might go back to school on January 2nd.
Yeah.
There's a lot of holidays in other countries that we don't have here. For example, that, like Ernest was saying, Easter Monday is not a public holiday, but we're going to have our own governmental holidays, for example, like Martin Luther King Day, and then banks are closed, and there's other things you have to be aware of.
For instance, May 1st is
Labor Day,
Workers' Day, almost around all African countries all around the world. But in America, that's a normal day.
It's a normal
Labor
day.
Weekend is in September, right?
Right. Well, we do have Labor Day, and it's in September, but they always put it on a weekend. So your child might get off that Friday or the next Monday, but it's so be aware. In Easter, sometimes they'll give you 3 days off. They'll give you Friday, Good Friday, and then you're off Saturday, Sunday, and then they give you Monday, and that's it. Or they might not, it all depends. And then there's spring break, which is usually a week. So usually they're separated, but this year our school put them together. So we had all of what we term Holy Week, because we're Christians, but we had the 5-day week, and then we went back to school on Easter Monday, which is a shock to many people. But that's what we did. I mean, that's how they have it. So be aware. And also that we have days off, and if you're working, you need to find a way for your child to be taken care of.
And speaking of still education part, there are some of the parents, maybe both are working. Maybe the school ends maybe around 3, but someone leaves, gets out of work at 5. How do they coordinate the child care service from 3 to 5? Should you come earlier to pick and whatever, or you can coordinate with the child care, whatever? There are some they come to pick from school. I know it's expensive, but how does that work?
Okay, so some schools will have after school care or before school care, where you can bring your child at 6 a.m. and they have they have school care until school starts, and then after school care but you will have to pay for that.
Yeah.
There are also places that they're actually in another place. They're their own building. It could be a few miles away from the school, and those are daycares or after or before care, whatever, and they drive your children to the school. So there are options, and if you find somebody that will help you, that's great too. But There are options, they just will cost you money, but you have to decide what is more important. Is it working
And pay the
and then
other people.
and then paying other people, or having it's a
But
tough one, right,
another-
Ernest?
But another advantage, what you talk about the positive of COVID, there are so many opportunities now. You can work from home.
Yes.
So if, let's say, you can try to put, say, maybe part-time certain time and be with your child, go and
Right.
whatever. Why we are saying that way? Especially, I want to ask you this one. The biggest challenge people ask me, usually you talk almost about good things about America. What are the things you don't like, or they are not good? And one of the challenge is raising children in America.
And I
Whether it's for Americans, whether it's from other
it
people.
doesn't matter, it's for everybody. So I think that, and that's an important aspect to bring up, is that Americans used to have a one person working household. So the mother stayed home, which is, I still believe that if it's possible, absolutely do it, because the mother makes the house run, you know? It not always. I'm so thankful that Ernest knows how to cook. So grateful. I know how to cook too, but the children like how he cooks better. They like his chapati and all these other things. So it's great that he knows how to cook. But here in the United States, because things are so expensive, usually both parents are working. And that means you see your children even less. And it's harder. And that will be, for many people, a shock that you don't spend time with your children. It'll also be a shock that your neighbors are not looking out for your children. They're not going to watch your children. They're not going to discipline your children. So it's really all on you. It's a big difference, unfortunately, from other places to come to here, but there are trade-offs. And
yeah, so another part is still of challenges of raising children and the schooling is how parents should you be involved on what is going to be taught in school. In addition to that, like usually, like if there is something like sex education or something whatever, or a certain movie, you have to give the consent. So especially when we are coming new, don't just sign everything
Don't just
off.
sign everything.
You just sign without knowing. If it's a movie they are showing, go and read, is this appropriate movie for my child? So can you explain that?
Yes.
And how do you make the decision?
okay, so in the schools, the public schools, they do have some type of sex education according to the age of the child. Personally, Ernest and I want to teach our children at home about the human body, about how babies are made, and everything like that. We don't want someone from the outside teaching them, because it could be too early and ruin their innocence. Children deserve to be children. So when these things happen, they send home paperwork, and it will say, we're going to have a movie on how life is getting different for your child. So they might not say sex education, but so they'll allude to it maybe, like, I'm growing up. Ask them what is in the movie. Ask them, can you look at it on YouTube? Can you, because they're not going to tell you unless you ask. And it's you, as a parent, who are responsible for your children, not them. And so it's very important. I know it's really strange for a lot of people. It was strange for my family and their family before that. Ernest, he tells me that that's just things that were not talked about. But here's the thing. If your children don't know, they're going to learn it from their friends. And they may learn some really strange things, or they may learn way too much. We do not want our children to end up with having sex at 13, 14 years old, and they're having babies and all of these things, because that's not, in the US it's so different. Children need to finish their schooling. And if they can't get jobs if they have little babies. Now if it happens, of course. But you want your children to understand that love comes in other ways. We don't have to search out companionship for things like that. And your school might be telling you differently. And now we have a lot of things that are even harder, because now we have things that they're going to teach you in school about how men can be women and women can be men, and how, or you can love, a girl can love a girl, or a boy. Now, I'm not going to tell you how to live your life, but if that's something that you do not want your children learning, you need to be involved. You need to find out what's going on in school. Yoga is one thing they do in school all the time. Now, for me, yoga, I understand it to be a prayer that is used by another religion. You want to do stretching? Fine. But those yoga poses are prayers. So when our children go to school, I make sure the teacher knows our children were not being doing yoga. Now, some of you might laugh and say, oh, that's silly. Just let them do it. It's not a problem. That's fine. I'm not going to tell you how to live your life. But this is how to be involved. And also, like the school lunch, it's so simple, but you can find out what your child is eating or what they will eat. Their websites or papers, they'll tell you. Be involved. Sometimes you can volunteer even. So.
And after the COVID, do they allow sometimes to go to eat lunch?
I know. We've really been bad about that with our sweet little Claire. She's asked if we would go have lunch with her. You can go, and most schools will let you go and sit with your child at lunch. And they
not every day.
Not every day. No. You don't want to do that every day. And lunch is very quick. It's usually about 20 minutes. But you can either bring lunch from home, or you can bring them McDonald's, which they think is so special. You don't even have to eat. You can just sit with them while they eat. You can buy a lunch from the school. But our children here think that's very, very special. Both of my parents worked, so I don't recall my mother having lunch with me, and definitely not my father. I think when my mother finally had lunch with me is when I had a job, and she came and visited me during my lunch hour. So, yeah, but children do see that as a big deal for you to come and have lunch with them. So,
what about there are other things like kids' birthdays in terms of friends with the schools? Sometimes. How does that work? Like, do you invite the entire class? Do you invite your friends, whatever? How does that work?
Okay, so birthdays are very, very big here. Everybody loves having a birthday. So, let me say this as an aside. You do not need to make this birthday a big thing where you're spending so much money. You can make a cake. It's cheaper. Or you can make cupcakes. Or you can buy a cake and it doesn't have to be expensive. You don't need a bounce house. You don't need huge decorations and all these things. That's for when you have lots of money. Even we've never done any of that. We have some decorations, and and we visit with people when they come for birthdays. So in schools, some schools allow you to send something with your child for their birthday, but here and a lot of other places, birthdays are not allowed to be celebrated because it takes away from their schooling time. They might sing happy birthday to your child on the day, but that's about all. So if you're going to have something at your home or at a park or somewhere else where you want to invite friends from school, then you need invitations. You could do something, you can find invitations that you can do on the internet, or you can have paper invitations, but people will need to be reminded more than once, and you need to give them your phone number and the place in advance. You don't want to tell them 2 days before to the party. But some schools require you to invite the entire class so no one feels left out. Some schools it doesn't matter. So for example, Benedict, our son, is now in 6th grade, and here in our town we have a lower elementary and an upper elementary. Our lower elementary is kindergarten through 4th grade, and our upper elementary is a separate building, and it's 5th and 6th grade. So I asked Benedict the other day about birthday invitations. He said it doesn't matter. You can give a few invitations to somebody, but you don't need to give it to everybody. In Claire's
school, the previous school, it was a must.
Yes, in the lower elementaries, our schools required that you give everybody an invitation.
So that is the involvement you have to know
And you don't have to go
It's
to
not a
party.
yeah.
Right. Well, here's the thing. You don't. If someone invites your child to go, you don't have to go.
But it's good to let them know.
It's nice, but you need to
That
let
I'm
them
not
know.
going.
When it says RSVP, which is the French, but responding, it's courtesy and respectful to respond and say, we will be coming or we won't be coming.
Don't show up like.
You can't just show up, and you can't show up late. You can show up maybe 5 minutes late or 10 minutes late, but
Not the real African time.
yeah, you cannot do that because the party may be over. We showed up about 10 or 15 minutes late about a month ago for somebody's party Claire went to, and it was almost over. Because they were doing cake and presents, and then they went swimming in a pool, and Claire wasn't going to do that swimming. Here, presents are a big thing. Now, here's the thing. Don't be embarrassed. If you don't have the money, you bring a card, and you get a birthday card from a dollar store or make a card. It's fine. You can, and maybe, or if you go to one of these smaller places and you find a little toy or something, some people will tell you, like we do, we say no presents are necessary. That way everybody feels free to come to the party whether they can afford a present or not. It's not necessary. But a lot of people, they just assume you're going to bring a present. Nobody is going to be so let down. These are children. If you don't bring them a present, it's not the end of the world. Something that we do in our family, we don't open presents during the party so that nobody has hurt feelings. A lot of times, as I'm sure you know, children, when they see another child opening a present, they feel bad because they didn't get a present. So, I mean, that's completely up to you, but
parenting is a very key, because if you don't parent your kids, you are not involved. And what I'm talking about involvement, I mean both father and mother.
Yes,
because that is the biggest destruction of America, is the lack of involvement of fathers into the children. I'm talking like someone is completely away, like especially in black families, the single parent, because the father are not there, is affecting. But even if you are both there, try when you are there, spend the quality time, or just like changing the diaper, help your wife, help them. It makes a lot.
Yes, here in the United States, the wife doesn't do everything. That's just not how it's
It's a
done.
responsibility for both.
Right.
So those are the things, like, okay, in addition to just like schooling about that, then it comes to the issue about let's say the kids making the decision on what they want to become in terms of academia. Like, how do you, because sometimes we say, okay, we can ask Claire, what do you want to become? I want to become a firefighter, I want to be this one. Sometimes we as immigrants, we forget, we say, oh, you must be a doctor. How does that work here? Like if the child wants to become an engineer, or to become a scientist, want to become a firefighter, police, why do they want to become firefighter, police, all those kind of things, and the parents will encourage that.
Okay, so when I was growing up, we had those ideas, like teacher, doctor, police officer, fire. I mean, it was very, very basic, lawyer, whatever, super basic. But what we found out was there are millions of different jobs. And some of those you don't need college, and some you do. And some of the jobs you just need a vocational school, technical school,
or special certifications,
or a certification, or you intern along with someone else to learn.
Get mentorship.
Mentors, yes. So, for example, plumbers make a lot of money. I mean, it's a disgusting job, but they make a lot of money. And
you don't need a degree for that.
You don't need a degree, but you can make a lot of money. But you have to learn how to do those things. You can't just say, oh, I know how. You have to have certifications. You have to have licenses. And here, military, police, firefighters, anybody who helps in an emergency are highly respected. I know you see on TV all of these things, or you see in videos, but I'm saying the general public of the United States, we totally, completely support our police, our fire department, our military. We are extremely patriotic here. You will see American flags everywhere. This is just part of us being patriotic. We love our country. We love what it stands for. It might be crazy with different government trying to say, like congressmen or lawmakers or whatever it might be, but those people come and go, right? Children, when they're young, they're gonna say things like,
They're gonna say, I want to become selling pizza. But
I remember Benedict when he was in kindergarten, he said he wanted to be a pizza maker. That's because he was 5 years old. I
and
mean,
he likes pizza.
yeah, I know. But you know that your child, just let them be. Don't tell them, oh, you can't do that. They're 5 years old.
But
they're gonna grow.
overall is this one. When we come as immigrant, degree is a must, like our life, because our success in most of our developing countries, we see degrees, bachelor, master's, PhD. That is vastly different from our life when you come here.
Degrees help
It's
in certain
important.
things, but other times it doesn't matter.
Exactly.
But and then college can be very, very
It's
university
so
can be
expensive, so don't go and get
so
this. You get
expensive.
$150,000 loan or $200,000 loan for a degree. Let's
That
give
you
an
might
example,
not use.
Like you're going to take political science or history.
Right.
For
You
what?
need to know exactly what kind of things you want to do.
Exactly.
Because there's more to life than just being a lawyer or just being a teacher or just being a doctor. There's so many different avenues that vocational, like what you can do, because if you're in the medical field, there's so many opportunities.
And different pathways, not direct go like bachelor, direct.
And you must be a doctor or you must be a nurse. There's people that read x-rays, there's people that clean rooms in hospitals, there's people
medical
that
billing, they do.
right, but there are people that just draw blood. There are people that read different results, and there's just so many different things in the medical field. You could just, I mean, there's even warehouses that make medical equipment and things. You could work for the police but not be a police officer. You could work at a school but not be a teacher. There are so many different options that I can't list them, but there's something for everybody, but you need to know what it is that you want. And you need to research to find out. You can't say, well, I just have to do this.
That is part of being involved with your parents. We are talking about parenting is a key. If you don't do that, they are going to...
They need to be... the schools will usually expose them to different opportunities or pathways to employment, but you really need to get involved, see different things, and learn, because not everything is right there for you. Can you list some of the jobs that are not typical? Like we know doctor, lawyer, and teacher and whatnot, but some of the other things that are just so.
So
you could be a bus driver. You can.
The school bus driver.
Right.
You get special training.
Right.
Those kind of things. They are respected. Those people. They whatever.
But there's so many things you can work on. Here you have to mow your lawns, and you have to keep your trees up, and you have to do it. So there are gardeners. And you could actually make a lot if you really know what you're doing.
Yeah. So there are so many other things, but all those kind of things, parents should be involved with your children, because you help them. Or if they want to do something, you can know where you can get the resource or something like that to encourage them, but not to leave your dream to your children. Especially we come from Africa and you want, like, you must have this degree in master's in MBA so that you are thinking like you are in Africa. No, go to this, like, talk to the specialists if you want, the career advisors, the academic advisors.
Yes, right.
Go attend to those kind of things if they want you to be there.
Right.
And those kind of things.
And also, I wanted to mention, being involved in your child's life also helps that they can talk to you. Absolutely discipline your children, but at the other part of it is that you want to be part of their life, so they'll talk to you and they won't hide things from you, because it's different here, and people get depressed, and people see things and they're sad, or they might go with the wrong crowd. Be involved. And what you do in your family is what you do in your family. You don't have to be like everybody else. Just because the neighbor over there lets their daughter date, or lets them go far away, or it's up to you to make those decisions. You are the parent.